So today I am going to walk you through and talk through how I preserve and pressure can our backyard chickens. This past weekend we did all of the processing of 25 birds. It was kind of a crazy, lofty, very optimistic task that we actually got done. It was the most birds we'd ever done in one weekend, the most birds we'd ever had at one time for meat birds. And we walked through that process. My husband and I just got it done. I have a video on our process with that. It's actually a pretty short video where I link to other specifics on how each part and each process takes place. But today I'm showing you how I'm going to preserve the chicken. And you may ask, as I've actually been asked by several people, so why are you canning your chicken? Because in their minds, I think they're thinking of the store-bought canned chicken. The texture that is not as very tender or moist. It's a drier consistency, and I wanted to tell you guys why we're doing this. Well, number one, the flavor, the texture, the taste is just amazing. So when you pressure can the chicken, the meat is just so fall off the bone tender. It just tastes incredible. Like, I can't even explain how amazed I was the first time that I did this. I was like, wow, this is really, really good. So I literally will pop open a jar of our canned chicken, pull out some of the meat, add an avocado to the food processor and some seasonings, and it is my boy's favorite chicken salad. It's just so easy. And that's the second reason I do this. It is just so seriously convenient and easy. I have 4 boys who eat a lot. They range from 8 to 15. I have a couple teenagers. And we homeschool, we homestead, and so trying to find time to constantly fill their bellies with nourishing, real food is time consuming. So taking out the step of having to thaw out the whole chicken from the freezer and cook it and do all that is really, really helpful. I love that I can come home from one of our days at Homeschool Co-op, pull out a jar of the chicken, throw it with some quinoa and broccoli, and we have an amazing meal. And then thirdly, the freezer space. Because we did such a large amount of chickens this time, I just don't have the freezer space to hold all of those birds. As it is, I'm actually struggling with trying to find the freezer space just for the backbone and the carcasses. So as I show you in the process here in just a second, I am canning raw pack bone in, and I will use the leg quarters, the thigh, the drumstick, the wings, and I will even use both of the breast meat. But the carcass, the bone carcass, like the backbone and the rib cage, all of that I do freeze with the neck, a pair of feet, and sometimes the wing tips, and I freeze that in a food saver bag, and I throw those in the freezer, and it's basically like chicken soup in a bag. So I can pull that out and make an amazing chicken soup or a bone broth with that. But trying to find the space for those is quite enough. So the space-wise. So that is why I can. It's amazing taste. It really helps with time and food prep. It's better than freezer cooking in my opinion. And that it's just a great space saver as well. So join me in my kitchen and I will walk you through all of the steps. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's get ready to can. So I have my cleaned jars here. I like to use quart jars. 1 quart holds about 2 pounds or 2 cups of chicken, and for our family of 6 with 4 hungry boys, that's excellent. But even with that, I can often split that into 2 meals and then refrigerate the rest. Like, I'll throw some into quinoa or in with refried beans for taco bowls. And sometimes these jars will actually last 2 meals if it's added to something. I have my station ready to go. I actually got this knife at Walmart yesterday for only $6.50 because we needed an extra knife while we were going through so many chickens. A fillet knife or a boning knife I have found to be the best for processing chickens, cutting up chickens. And I will put the carcasses in that pot, like the back, because I'm not going to be canning those. Remember to always put the little tray in at the bottom so that the jars are not sitting on the very bottom. That will definitely cause cracks and breaks. So I'm going to add some water to this. I'll add several quarts. I kind of am not a measurer, but I will make sure that when the jars are in there, so this is from my batch from last night, but that when the jars are in there, the water does not come higher than about there, because you actually do not want water to go above your jars, because when pressure canning, it's actually steam canning. So you do not want your jars submerged in water. So I will fill that up now. So I have our awesome chicken right here. I am gonna part this out and get ready to put it in my canning jars. So the easiest way to do this, and I'm sure you can find other videos on it, but I do the thighs, the leg quarters first. You kind of break those bones and it makes it easier. So then when I cut it off, it comes easier off. And there you have an awesome leg quarter. For putting in the jars, I do go ahead and cut it separately because it fits easier into the quart jars when it is pieced apart. I am such a messy cook, y'all. I'm thankful for my hubby who helps with the dishes at night, but oh my goodness, I'm such a mess. There's a sweet spot to find for cutting this. I found it really easy on the first one, where you will miss the bone. Let's see if I can feel it. There it is. And it just cuts it easily apart. The wings come off typically pretty easily. I am going to be canning these bone in. So there you go. And actually, so what I do is I will piece these apart as well, because there's no meat on this last little piece of the wing. I pop this in my soup pot with the carcass, and that's going to go for making chicken soup or bone broth. If you find a few extra feathers, just pick those off. These were clucking yesterday. Or actually 2 days ago they were clucking. And that will go there. All right, for the chicken breast, I find if you push it down, that helps. I'm gonna split this down on either side of this chest bone. And it comes off a lot easier. I remember cooking whole chickens a lot as a young married student, and my husband was a campus minister, and I taught cooking classes to some of the young married students. I'm trying to think, maybe late 20s, and grew up in a household that cooked most everything from scratch. So I learned how to cook from my mom and my grandmothers, whereas a lot of these girls in college just had not learned, and they were so overwhelmed by cooking a whole chicken. And And so just simply teaching them how to stick it in the oven was overwhelming. This to me was a little bit overwhelming. Deboning the entire chicken. One of the things that kind of helps me is knowing that if there's any little bit of meat left on this when I am done, it's just gonna make for an excellent soup. Because I will show you, once I get this breast off of the carcass, we will have this wonderful carcass left with the backbone, and I will add in the neck and the feet, and this is going to make for an excellent chicken soup or bone broth. Okay, so you saw how I cut up the chicken and prepped it for putting it in jars. I leave the bone on for the legs and the thighs and the wings. I actually used to leave even part of the breastbone on, but our chickens get so large. These are actually only 9.5-week-old Cornish cross, and they get so large that I find I can fit more in a jar when I do take the breast fully off. And then I use that entire carcass to make chicken vegetable soup, bone broth. I save the feet and the neck, combine all that together. So one thing I do recommend, you can use this for even store-bought chicken, whatever, but this is raw pack bone in, and so I don't use any water. It creates all of the juices itself. Oh my goodness, like it's amazing. I have in this jar right here, you can see, look at all that goodness of liquid. This is from yesterday's canning, and it is so full. So all that is just juice that the chicken produced on its own. So with that, you may want to make sure you include the skin or include dark meat with your white meat if you're just doing chicken breasts, because that's how I'm combining these. So in each one of these, and I'll show you, I'm gonna have a thigh, basically a half of a chicken almost, a thigh, a drumstick, a breast, and then if I can fit in some of the wings, I'll put that too. So here we go. So I am taking a chicken thigh and a chicken breast. Y'all, these chickens are massive. Once I get these in here, if I can even fit all this in here, I am going to put a teaspoon of salt, and you can just smash it in there really well. So 3 whole chickens will fill up 7-quart jars. I actually might even have a little bit extra since the chickens are so large. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt to each one. And I keep a little glass of vinegar, this is white vinegar, to clean off the rings. Because you don't want any chicken bits preventing a good seal on these. I will add my lids that I've cleaned, but these are cold lids, they're not warmed up. And I will add these to my canner. I'll fill up the rest as well. We will do 7-quart jars. All right, so I have all my jars sealed, well, not sealed up, closed up, ready to go into the canner. And one of my biggest tips is make sure you use vinegar to wipe the rims. And do you see how full these are? I didn't really worry a ton about headspace because it's going to make its own liquid, and it's just perfect as long as the bones are not protruding up and pushing into the lid. This is canning meat. And so while I'm not a measurer, I'm very precise with canning methods as to protect my kids, my family. With quarts, you're typically across the board. Now you always need to check for your area exactly what you're making. Don't take my word for it, but a typical rule that I go by is 90 minutes for quarts and 75 minutes for pints with anything involving meat. So that's what I'll be doing. And you always want a pressure can, not water bath can. So I will load these up, get it up to pressure, and excited about that. And then next up, I will take the lids off and clean the jars that I pressure canned yesterday. I can fit 7 quarts in. If you notice the water level, you do not want these jars to be submerged. And I try to make sure the jars are not touching the sides of the pot or each other. That also helps with preventing breakage. Project is complete. I just pulled the hot jars out of the canner with my grabbing tool, as I showed you just now, and I'm gonna let those sit on a dish towel. I always sit them down on a dish towel because if you put them down on a cold counter, there can also be cracked, just the contrasting of the hot jars to the cold counter. So you put a dish towel down or some kind of cloth, and I'm gonna let those sit. I'm not gonna handle them. They're super hot for overnight, and then tomorrow I'll do what I showed you previously where I take the rings off and clean them. I'm so excited to be storing all of this in my pantry. I will share with you in another video some of the incredible, we call it homesteader fast food ways that I use all of this incredible canned chicken, from chicken salad to chicken quinoa, to barbecue chicken and beans. There's so many great options, chicken pasta as well. So stay tuned for some more fun videos as I take you through how I feed my brood of boys with this homesteader fast food.